Hey guys, welcome back to Flatline Detonation. I am Dakota, and today we're going to be doing another our JDM 205s really worth it. And I've actually got two of them here. That's right, not one, but two JDM 205s that came over from the slow boat from the land of the rising sun. And that is because this engine here as you heard has a healthy rod knock, along with my car. Again, healthy rod knock. If you guys are new to the channel, you're probably here for one of two reasons, is my guess. You just bought your first Subaru and it's blown up. Or you're like my friend Dana here and you bought one that's already blown up, so you know you've got at least a little time left on the engine. I joke, but Subarus are not known for their reliability. I just killed another one in the RS. Actually, well, okay. I killed the same one twice. If you guys don't know, this is my 2.5 RS that has a 2-liter swap. It's dubbed named White Girl because it's a very basic setup. 2-liter, non-ABCS, and the reason I did that is the reason sitting behind me. 2 liters are cheap, they are easy to source. As for my RS, there's a couple reasons why it's blown up. Just a few. Not that many reasons. Okay, all right. If you've been watching the channel, you know there probably is a lot of reasons. Like a lot of reasons why this car is blown up. This car is not a daily. It is totally meant for having fun, ripping, racing, autocrossing, the whole 9 yards. That is what this car is meant to do. If it breaks, I can't be mad about it. That's why I have this car. Now, the reason why it blew up the first time is a cracked piston. Now, this really isn't something that happens on 2 liters because the 2-liter doesn't have such a big bore like the 2.5s, which leads me to this guy. Now, if you're here and you clicked on the video, you want to know, is a JDM engine worth it? To summarize it, I have some pros and cons here. So we have price, miles, which is also a con in my opinion, and higher compression, which leads to this guy. Toasted. Let's talk about the miles real quick before we get to the high compression part. JDM engines are advertised as low miles because in Japan they don't really use stuff as long as we do here. They always want to buy new stuff. Now there's some things that I've heard, and maybe you guys can comment below. They don't maintain them as well because they don't keep them as long, so they don't worry about oil changes and that kind of thing. Now, this is only rumors that I've heard. Maybe you guys can comment below and, confirm or deny that. Based on the inside of these engines and pulling valve covers, everything looks clean, so it looks like it's been maintained very well. It's not like, when I got my LS engine for the Z, that wasn't really maintained that great and there was sludge everywhere. One thing to note is some of these engines come with a sticker like the engine that's going in my car. I tried to translate this. My translator app didn't do a very good job. So in 2009, August 6th, they wrote down 75,727 kilometers, which translates to 48,000 miles roughly. So I'm assuming that's an oil change interval, and this engine should have around 48,000, maybe a little more. I'm not sure if that's the sticker for when you should change the oil or the timing belt. I'm assuming you wouldn't change the timing belt at 48,000 miles. That doesn't really make sense. So I'm assuming it's a sticker for changing the oil, which is really cool if it actually is and it's 50,000 miles. But that is a con in my opinion. You don't really know what you're putting into your car. I'm pretty sure they're low mileage, but you don't know what low mileage means. If it was maintained, not maintained, that kind of thing. So the mileage is a pro and a con in my opinion. Let's talk about the compression thing. JDM 205s have a higher compression than their counterpart, the USDM 205. The reason for that is a JDM 205 isn't really a 205. It's some sort of variation. As far as I know, it's a JDM 206. They came in like legacies, and I don't know what other vehicles they came in Japan because the market is so weird there, but they actually had twin turbos on them. Japan has higher octane fuel than we do, so they would run a higher compression engine. The pistons are not the same. I'll toss a photo up on the screen here, and as you can see, side by side, the 2-liter piston is slightly thinner in some spots. They are weaker. I have seen it in forums. Other guys have been breaking them like this. I wish I had a piston here to show you, but to get the RS running, I actually used a full set of used USDM pistons in the car to get it running. The block was fine, the crank was fine, everything was fine. I just tossed a set of USDM pistons in it, lowered the compression. The sad thing is though, I only got 5,000 miles on that engine before it rod knocked. Now, could it be because it's a used JDM engine? Probably not. The anti-lag launch control was really aggressive on the car, probably why it cracked the piston in the first place, and I had to fix it. Then the rod bearing was an on-track failure. I think I got the oil too hot, which is another pro to these engines. You know, they're cheap. With that car, I'm always testing with it, I'm always messing with it, and if I have an engine failure, instead of having to buy a 257, which is like $3 grand for a used engine, and those are US engines. Those engines have 120,000, 150,000, and people want $3,000 for those. I can blow up 4 engines before I buy one STI engine. Now, I used to have an STI swapped RS, and that's why I sold it. Ended up having a rod failure, and it was just too expensive to fix. I had other priorities at the time, sold it off, built the basic white girl RS because the 2 liters are so much cheaper, so much easier to get. Order one on eBay, have it in a week or 2, you're back up and running. That is the biggest pro in my opinion, is the cost and how quick you can be back up and running with a 2.0. So, because of the higher compression, what you're going to have to do, and this is an additional cost, if you're smart and you want the thing to last, is when you get this engine in, you need to find someone that does open source tuning, have a Cobb tune, some kind of tuning done to it. Because the timing that's set up in your car now is probably too much. Your USDM engine was lower compression, it could take more timing, more boost. The USDM engine cannot take as much timing. I could be wrong, you could throw it in, you could do a couple logs and it'd be fine. But my recommendation, and a lot of people out there, is that you put it in and you at least do a data log, make sure everything's fine, and maybe, you know, detune it a little bit, make a few adjustments, but you definitely want to put it in and have it checked over because, again, higher compression than the factory engine that was in there, and you got to make sure you take care of that. So you clicked on this video, you want to know, how do I get this engine into that car, turn the key, it runs, and I can drive down the road, drive to work, maybe do some autocrossing. What do I got to do? It's pretty simple. Some of these engines, and I've actually got the timing covers off of here. That's one thing to point out. These things in shipping usually break most of the timing covers. Sometimes on these you have to change out the cam gear and then the crank sensor and the reluctor gear. Sometimes these are different. In the case of these engines I have on the floor, they are the exact same as this one. So in theory, we could throw this engine in and it would run. My friend Dana is going to do a little bit of preventative maintenance. We're going to do the timing belt, spark plugs. He's got to do a clutch because the clutch was fried, so an additional cost to him on this one. And then we'll put it back in. As far as what needs to happen between the two, everything that's missing from this engine needs to come off of this engine. There are a few things you guys want to change or be aware of on the JDM 205. This coolant passage right here that goes to your heater core is different on this engine. So this line right here, you want to remove and use the original one from this engine because it places this line over to this side so it'll connect to your heater box. One other thing to notice is all of the plumbing for the turbo. These lines are different, and like this one right here is trashed, it's bent. These engines come over on a boat, they are stacked in a crate. The guys are just, I mean, they're trying to get them over here as cheap as possible. They do not care how they get here, so you're going to have some broken stuff. Case in point, we got a broken fill tube. There's some broken sensor wires, so we'll have to replace the knock sensor. Cracked timing covers, as you guys saw. But the nice thing is you probably have your original engine, and most of those pieces are going to be in good shape or good enough to put onto this engine and get you up and going. Another thing to notice is how dirty my friend Dana's engine is. It is filthy. We come over to the JDM engine. It's actually really clean because of the mileage on these. This is where I'm torn if they're actually as low mileage as claimed. Now, you can kind of do a little bit of investigation and figure out, okay, I'm pretty sure, like 99% sure, these engines have less than 100,000 miles on them. And that's because of the timing belt. The timing belts look like, you know, they have that mid 60,000 miles as claimed. They're not cracked, they're definitely worn. Hopefully this isn't like the second go around. They were replaced at 100K, now it's almost 200K. Based on how clean the engine is though, I don't think that's the case. I'm sure they clean these things, they almost have to when they pull them out, but to clean them that well, and this is where everybody ripped on me in my first video, to clean them that well, it'd probably be really hard. You can probably get them really clean. I did notice on the bottom of this engine, it's really dirty on the bottom, but that could be, you know, valve covers seeping a little bit. I'm gonna put you on a time lapse, tear everything off of this engine that we need for that engine, get it all laid out so you can kind of visually see what you all need from this engine to go on that engine. All the broken sensors I take off that engine, I'll put in a pile, and then we'll throw it in the car, start it up. You guys can see that, you know, JDM engines work in a USDM car, and then we'll call it good. Both these engines are stripped down of everything that's not needed or needed. One thing I forgot to mention, and it's really important, the USDM engine has an oil cooler. The JDM one does not. Now you might think to yourself, well, I'll just take the one off my USDM engine. Do not do that. Whatever you do, do not use any parts that have touched any oil in your blown up engine. The oil cooler is like a grenade. You literally attach it to your new engine and you're just gonna send shrapnel all through it and you'll probably blow it up. This is a nice visual representation of everything you need. Everything that we took off that is not needed anymore. Starting from the top of the engine, obviously you want your intake manifold, all the fuel rails, injectors, the whole 9 yards, your turbo coolant reservoir. Make sure to take any timing covers that aren't cracked off of your engine. So we got a full set of timing covers. AC compressor and alternator mount. The alternator's already off. That'll go on as well. The coolant lines to go up and over on your new engine. There's one bolt that sits down behind the timing cover. Way down there. It's kind of a pain, but you can get a box wrench on there. That'll come off. Your turbo with the coolant drain and the oil drain. This guy right here, this is probably the hardest part of the whole swap. This is a press fit, and it is a pain to get out. It is located on the back of your engine here. There's one bolt right here that attaches it, that keeps it in place, and it is press fit in there. Now, if you take a skinny little ratchet like this, a 1/4 inch ratchet, you can wedge it in there, pry it back and forth. Be very careful not to bend it, and if you put outward pressure going this way and pry it back and forth, you can get this guy out. To put it back in, I put just a tiny little bit of sealant around the outside of it and then use a plastic hammer to hammer it back in. If you're not careful, and you can do what I did when I removed it from the JDM engine, and you can bend it. Not a huge deal for this piece because you don't need this anymore. But this piece right here, you're gonna have a tough time finding a good one. Bracket to hold the turbo up. You definitely want one of these because your up pipe will crack if you don't have something holding the turbo. Exhaust manifold. This one's seen better days, but it'll work. It's got an STI up pipe on there. A little bit of an upgrade from the stock one. Again, some missing pieces that were cracked on the one that came in. Your fill tube, your PCV system, your oil pressure sending unit. This is a little bit different. It's got a different connection point than the JDM one. That summarizes pretty much everything. This thing is ready to be put back together. Fairly straightforward. Just remove everything off your old one, lay it all out so it's organized for yourself to put back together on the new one. I don't think we're gonna show you putting it back together because it's pretty straightforward, but we will show you putting it in the car and starting it up, show you it works. All right, engine is in the car. We just cranked it over. We should be good to go. Garage is a mess. How do you feel about this? Be warned, it's got a really, really obnoxious exhaust, so. All right, here we go. So loud. It's so smoky. You enjoyed that 20-point turn. This thing's running good now. There's a few little things that we needed to button up last night, and it was just really boring stuff. Didn't want to show you. Overall, pretty good. Runs nice and smooth. The exhaust is absolutely obnoxious, and that's one of the things Dana's gonna change right away. I don't know how you'd even drive through town without getting pulled over. This thing is crazy loud. Shut it off so you guys can hear me talk. I did want to mention, I know people were roasting me in the first JDM videos worth it. These things are shipped across the ocean. They sometimes get water in them. When you start them up, they're gonna run like crap for a little bit till like everything clears out. The valves reseat themselves. They kind of just build up a little crud in there. So be aware of that. I kind of freaked out when I got my first 2 JDM engines for my car over there. So don't panic like I did. Just be aware of it. It's going to smoke, it's going to smell, it's going to do weird things on first startup, but it's running great now. There is a check engine light. I'm not sure what it's for. I'm sure it's for the TGVs because I deleted them while we had it apart. Overall, things running good. Gonna mess with it, tune it a little bit as much as I can do, and then we're gonna take it to the dyno. Probably won't show you guys that. It's gonna make like 250 horsepower. Kind of in a dilemma on what I'm gonna film next. I gotta put the engine in White Girl, but you guys have seen that multiple times already, so there's no point in doing another boring video on that. I'm not here to be repetitive and do boring videos. I do videos that nobody really does and teach you guys. So if you guys have any ideas what I should do next, I wanna do a coil relocation on the Z, clean the engine bay up. It looks like crap and I hate it. Want to mess with that a little bit. I don't know if it's worth a video. Let me know. If you guys don't want to watch it, I'm not going to do it. There's no point in wasting my time. No point in wasting your time either. It's super cool. Dana dropped this off on a trailer. Now I get to drive it home later today. So I hope you guys enjoy this, and we'll see you next time.